I'm willing to bet 99% of the motorcycle fans watching have never seen a Kawasaki 250 Samurai like this one. Our host Tom received a message from a fan about a rare Kawasaki 250 that had been abandoned for over 40 years in Pennsylvania, so he drove all the way from New Jersey overnight to check it out. The location from the fan's message was this very barn. When Tom opened the door, sure enough, tucked away in a corner was a motorcycle. For a vintage motorcycle collector like Tom, it was like winning the lottery. After looking the bike over, Tom identified it by the metal Kawasaki badge on the fuel tank. He determined it was a model produced between 1967 and 1968. In the North American bike scene today, a find like this is as rare as hen's teeth. A deal had already been made with the owner, so Tom got right to work with the tools he brought along. He started by using a portable air compressor to fill the dry rotted tires. Miraculously, after sitting for decades, both tires still held air. That's what I sound like in the morning when I wake up. Next, it was time to push the Kawasaki 250 out of the barn it had called home for decades. But when Tom put his weight into it, he discovered the rear wheel was completely seized. Finally, using every ounce of his strength, he managed to roll it out into the daylight. You can see that even though it's a product of the 60s, its design is still timeless. With a long drive home ahead of him, Tom didn't waste any more time. He brought the trailer around and got ready to load it up. It's a good thing Tom has the muscle for it. He single-handedly pushed the bike with its locked-up rear wheel into the back of his van. He arrived home the next morning. Unloading was the same process as loading, except this time the rear wheel was able to turn, albeit slowly. Before starting any real repairs, the bike needed a thorough cleaning to remove decades of caked-on dust and grime. During the wash, Tom discovered this Kawasaki 250 has two carburetors, a real eye-opener for him. He also noticed the rear fender was an aftermarket part with a production date from 1980 to 81. Next, he tried to shift gears, but the shifter was completely stuck. Seeing he wasn't making any progress, Tom pushed the bike into his workshop. His first target was the Kickstarter. No matter how hard he pushed, he got absolutely no response. It was clear the engine was seized solid. Next, he checked the fuel tank. There was still a lot of liquid inside, but a closer look revealed the tank was full of rust. The top priority was to unseize the engine. After removing the spark plugs, Tom poured a bit of lubricant into the cylinders. While that soaked, he used a magnet to check the body panels. It turned out that except for the stainless steel front fender, all the other parts were steel. Then he disconnected the fuel line from the frame to prepare for moving the tank. But before taking it off, he had to drain the old fuel that had been sitting for years. As the fuel drained, you could see chunks of rust being sucked out along with it. With the tank empty, he removed it from the frame. Tom tried the Kickstarter again, but it was still locked solid. So he tried another trick, turning the rear wheel to try and break the seized engine free, but that didn't work either. Looking into the cylinders, you could see a lot of carbon buildup. The only option left was to tear down the engine. He also noticed that even though the bike was in neutral, the rear wheel still wouldn't turn. Tom suspected a problem with the chain. To test his theory, he had to cut it off. And just as he suspected, the drive chain was seized solid.
To remove it, he had to take off the front sprocket cover. As you can see, the once flexible chain had rusted into what was basically a solid iron bar. That certainly explained why the rear wheel wouldn't turn. Tom guessed that the cylinders were rusted and that the bearings were likely shot. The transmission's condition was also a complete unknown. All these challenges were waiting for him. He grabbed a block of wood ready to force the pistons to move. After a bit of work, the pistons finally moved down slightly. He could now see the exhaust ports below the pistons. This allowed him to pour more lubricant into the cylinders to help free the stuck pistons. While waiting, Tom removed the side cover, revealing one of the carburetors. He then removed the gear shifter on the other side to get that side cover off. Underneath, he found the second carburetor, also connected to a throttle and choke cable. After waiting for about half an hour, Tom went back to hammering the block of wood. The progress was minimal, with the piston only moving a tiny bit more, but it was a glimmer of hope. He continued the repetitive hammering. Finally, after nearly half an hour of smacking away, he finally managed to smash his own finger with the hammer. Frustrated, he let his friend take over. But on his friend's second swing, something else went wrong. Tom had to take back over. This time he had a smarter idea. He decided to try heat before hammering. But no matter what he did, he couldn't get any significant movement. At a loss for what to do next, Tom decided to continue the teardown. He opened up the clutch cover, but even that didn't help free the pistons. He was back to the same old method, heating and soaking the cylinders. He let it soak for an entire week. When it was clear the oil hadn't penetrated the engine, he sucked it all out. After trying every trick in the book with no success, he had no choice but to pull the cylinders. Using 2 wooden dowels, Tom easily lifted them off. The pistons inside were covered in carbon buildup and needed a thorough cleaning. Tom first honed the cylinder walls and then started scraping the carbon off the pistons. After cleaning the first one, he moved on to the second cylinder. Having done it once, the second one was much easier. With the piston problem solved, Tom removed the carburetors for inspection, but when he took them apart, he didn't find anything unusual inside. This was a rare piece of good news. Sometimes, no news is good news. He reassembled them, gave them a quick clean, and reinstalled them on the frame. Next, Tom removed both pistons for a detailed polishing, including the piston pins, before reinstalling them. With the cylinders also back in place, he tried the Kickstarter. You could see both pistons inside finally moving freely. That massive hurdle was finally cleared. Next was checking for spark. The plugs weren't firing. Tom hooked up a portable jump pack and the bike's electrical system came to life. The taillight lit up and he saw a weak but visible spark at the plugs. It was enough for a startup attempt. This made old Tom give an excited thumbs up. After nearly a month of searching, Tom finally tracked down the correct piston rings and oil rings for this rare Kawasaki. He immediately installed them on the pistons. Now he could reinstall the spark plugs and the side covers, along with the original air filter. The tank and seat went on next. With all the parts back on, it was time for the Kawasaki 250 Samurai's first start.
This gave Tom a surge of hope. He repeatedly kicked it over, trying to awaken the engine that had been dormant for decades. Finally, after several tries, the engine briefly came to life. Both of them were ecstatic. But after several more attempts, the engine would only run for a moment before dying. But Tom didn't give up. He swapped in a new set of spark plugs and tried again. This time, the engine roared to life and settled into a steady idle, with no signs of stalling. Finally, after nearly 2 weeks of work, the initial overhaul of this Kawasaki 250 Samurai was complete. Tom mentioned that he still needs to create a detailed plan for the bike's full cosmetic restoration. So what do you folks think of a classic bike like this from decades ago? Let us know in the comments.